Hi all, I thought I would do sort of a crash course video on how to do a grand tableau with the tarot. A lot of people don't know that this can be done. If you're familiar with Lenormand, a lot of people were familiar with the grand tableau being a Lenormand reading, but there is a version of the grand tableau that you can do with tarot. Now, I've gone ahead and laid one out. You'll notice that for this, we're only using the majors from the tarot. So just 22 cards, not all 78 for this grand tableau. And it does have some similarities to the Lenormand grand tableau, if you're familiar with that, because we do use, I call them anchor cards, other people call them significator cards, but we do use those where we look for a certain card and then we read around that in order to get information on that area of someone's life. I love to use these as general readings. When a querent or myself just wants a reading, but they're not really sure what they want a reading on, or they just want a reading on their life as a whole, and it really can't be narrowed down so much to one question. That's when I like these. You can ask a specific question of the grand tableau and then look for that anchor card and read around it, and then read a couple of the other cards that I'll show you for a little bit more information. And you can do it that way, so that you're asking a question and you're really only looking at a couple of general cards and then you're focusing in on that one specific area through the grand tableau. You can absolutely do this that way, but that's just not how I generally do the grand tableau. And I am so sorry if I bump the table during this. I'm trying so hard not to. I've already thrown out a couple takes of this video because it's so hard for me to reach and not bump the table. But how you do this is, again, this is majors only, so you're going to separate the majors out from your deck. Then you'll shuffle them. If you have a specific question, you'll ask it while you shuffle. If you don't, that's okay. Also, I'll give you a little tip about if you want to look at a relationship with a certain person. We'll get to that later. But if you are doing that, when I explain that, you're going to, as you're shuffling, declare to yourself, the universe, the deck, however you do it, that a specific card represents that person, and you will focus on that also while you shuffle, so that it will come out in the spread the information that you need. So, like I said, once you have a question, or if you just want a general reading, you shuffle your cards until you feel that they're ready, and then you're going to start to lay out the cards like we have here. So how you will lay out the cards, you will start up here, you will lay out 7 cards. Then you will come down to here, lay out 7 more cards. Notice we're stopping here. You'll come down here, lay out 7 more cards, and then your 22nd card, your final card, will go right here. So this card that's sort of out here, sticking out from the spread, that's the last card that you will deal out. You do not deal it when you deal this middle row. You deal it the very last card. Then, once you have them laid out, you can start interpreting them. How I like to start is right here. This card is the central issue. You can interpret that as you like. Sometimes this will give some insight into the querent's question if they had one. Sometimes even if they had a question, this won't relate to that. This will be the real issue or the real question, because sometimes that doesn't always come out or is not always conveyed through the querent's question. Then I come up here, and this is the root of the issue, this very first card, and I'll interpret that. And you can interpret these separately and together. And then I will come over here, this very last card. This is what is coming into being. This is the future card. Now, how I do predictive readings is my predictive readings, or this future card, only looks out to up to 90 days from the date of the reading. Our futures, our fates are not written in stone. They are changeable. So if we look at up to that 90-day window, I find that to be more accurate, because generally speaking, the course that we are on is usually pretty fairly set. And so up to 90 days, this is going to be pretty accurate. Now, if you make big changes, or somebody else that is involved make big changes, or make drastic decision choices that it wasn't looking like they were going to make, that can alter this always. But I find that if we look up to 90 days and not past that, this is usually pretty accurate, pretty close to the mark. Now, then I like to go back. So whenever you have an anchor card or a significator card, in this case, we're just using this as the central issue. Anything above the card is the unconscious or what the querent does not have a lot of control over. Anything below the card we're reading is the conscious and what the querent does have control over. So in this case, here's the unconscious or little control, conscious, lots of control. I'll read those around the central issue. Most of the time, I don't for the central issue, unless it happens to be one of our other significator or anchor cards. I don't generally read the past and the future for the central issue. That's just a personal choice. You absolutely can. Anything, so if this is the card we're working with, our significator or anchor card, anything to the left is the past, anything to the right is the future, anything in line with it is the present. So that holds true no matter what our anchor card is or where it is in the spread. Anything to the right of it is the future, anything to the left of it is the past, anything in line with it is the present. But for this, unless it happens to be one of our anchor cards, I just read those. Then from there, we can start going into our other anchor cards, the other areas of life. So if the querent wanted to know about their love life, we would go to the lovers. And then in this case, since it's over here in the corner and there's no past, the past is not what is important for them to focus on right now. They really need to focus on the present, which is this line, and then the future, what is to come, so that they can plan accordingly. And if they don't like what's in this line, if they're not feeling this, then they can work to change that. So again, present, future, and in this case, the past is not significant in this case, or it's not where the client's focus should be in this moment. So if there's no past. Now, another area that people commonly look at is their finances. Again, be careful if you're reading for somebody about their finances or their job, because we are not certified financial advisors, generally speaking, as tarot readers. So make sure you're working within the confines of what is legally acceptable for a tarot reader. But for career, job, finances, the Wheel of Fortune is where we want to look. Now, if they have a side project, a side business, a hobby business, or a personal project, then we're going to look at the Magician for that. And he will give us he or she, depending on your deck, will give us the details about that. I happen to be using the Tarot del Toro today, in case anyone is wondering what this deck is. So down here, if we're looking at the job or career, there's a lot that is either unconscious or that the querent doesn't have a lot of control over. And at this particular moment, their hands are sort of tied. They're kind of limited in what action they can take in this moment. But even if they can't take a lot of physical action, they can plan and prepare and decide what they want to do as soon as their hands are not tied. So because there's nothing down here for the conscious or what the querent has control over, it kind of indicates a waiting period, which is usually good to use as a planning period. So they might not be able to take a whole lot of physical actions towards that area of life right now, but they can still plan, they can still think about it, so that as soon as they are free to make the actions they need, or it's the best time to make the actions that they need to make, they're ready to go. Again, the past is this direction, the future is this direction. Now up here for the side business or personal project, etc. Okay, we have a lot of past. So look at what has led up to this anchor card, because this stuff is very important. How they got to where they are. They have a lot of things that they can take control of right now, but the future yet has not been decided, which I know a lot of people get frustrated with that, because a lot of people, they're like, they want the reading for what is to come. And in this case, the cards are not giving us anything to come. So the thing is with this, try to, if you're reading for yourself or if you're reading for somebody else, be encouraging, because this means that a direction, you're not really set in a direction yet, which means you've got a lot of opportunity to take these actions that you can take and then sort of forge your path. So just because it isn't there, it isn't really solidified or congealing yet, you've still got a lot of opportunity, you've got a lot you can do, and you can make things happen, even if it isn't certain. Also, you can tie this, we can read diagonals as well with cards, and the diagonal would be the future card. So this would tie into the overall future. So you could do that too. The next card, and we will get into diagonals more in a minute, the next card that we could look at is Temperance. She's over here. So if you want to know about your health, then you would read from the Temperance card. There's the past, there's the future. Now, I don't read this card, generally speaking, into it. Once we're doing the anchor cards, I usually only read to right here, because this future card kind of ties into everything. But this future card will tie in to Temperance, what you have control of, what you don't have control of or little control of, and there's the past for health. Now, a note here, I do not read the health card for clients at all, ever. I did try to, for a while, read that and keep it very much in the legal confines of what you can do, but I have just stopped doing that altogether. Especially since I am a Reiki. Just know that this video is intended for personal use, and if you want to read on your own health, that is perfectly fine. However, if you are reading for anyone else, please do remember that there are legal implications to reading on health and giving any sort of advice in regards to health. So make sure that you are abiding by the law where you are and only speaking on health in a way that you are legally allowed to do so. So I just want to caution about that. This video is meant for personal use. This is meant for you to just read for yourself about health. But if you choose to read for others on health, just make sure that you know very well the law where you are and that you are abiding by the law. Now, I am going to go over diagonals, and there's a couple more anchor cards we're going to look at, but we're going to go over diagonals at the moment. So let's look here with Temperance, our health card, just because it's in a good position for this. If you want more information on the past, you can look at the diagonals for the past. You can look at the diagonal up and look at past unconscious influences. You can look at past conscious influences on health in this case. You can come up and look at future conscious or unconscious influences, future conscious influences. You can also, some people will bring the diagonals instead of just conscious and unconscious influences. Some people will follow the diagonal till you can't follow it any further, and then that they consider just additional information or additional insight into that area, especially if things are a little murky or if it is the client specific question. Then I usually will follow the diagonals till they terminate and just read those as additional information. I usually read the future diagonals. I only go into the past diagonals typically if the past is of great significance for the specific issue or querent, or something really jumps out that we need to really be aware of this past influence. I put less emphasis on the past and more emphasis on the present and future when I do these readings. But that's my personal style. Now you can do the diagonals for any of the cards that we talked over. So you could do it for the Lovers, you could do it for the Magician, for the side project or personal project. You could do it for the career and finances. You can do it for health. We already looked at the Lovers. Another card that you can do, let's say, I don't get this one very often, but let's say you want to make a move, a physical move, a change of residence, or perhaps a change of job. You could look to the Chariot, and again, past, future, present. In this case, there would be a lot of unconscious things going on, or things that the querent doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of control or influence over. So you could look at that as well. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this that if you have a relationship with someone that you really want to look at gaining some insight with that relationship of how the two of you are interacting and what you can do to improve that relationship, you can designate. Now, I have three options for you. If the person identifies as male or female, then for a male you would use the emperor, for a female you would use the empress. If someone identifies as non-binary or gender fluid and you don't really feel that the emperor or the empress would be the right significator card for them, then for me, and this is my own personal thing, I haven't seen anyone else do this or address this, but for me personally, if that is the case, then I would use justice, because for me that's a sense of balance. And for me, non-binary is sort of like both scales are, in balance. They're even. They don't tip to male or female. They're balanced at that non-binary point. Or for me, it makes sense even just to have this as being gender fluid as well. So if somebody that you are reading about doesn't identify as male or female, then this is the card I recommend, but play it by ear as long as you're not using a card that already has a meaning, like you wouldn't want to use the Magician or the Lovers, because those already have a meaning. They have an area of life that we're going to look at through that card. But as long as you're using a card that doesn't already have a meaning, if you will, assigned to it, you're fine. So for example, if you felt that the person you want to read about your relationship with has very much full energy, you could dedicate the Fool card to them, or you could dedicate the Tower to them, whatever kind of energy you feel they have, as long as it's not used for something else in the spread. The other thing I want to mention, I rarely have people ask for this in the Grand Tableau, but if somebody wanted to know about their spiritual path, then I would look to the High Priestess. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I normally get, but the High Priestess, if they want to look at their spiritual life, if they want to make a big change, so like maybe a change of residence or a change of job, I would look at the Chariot. If they have some big life-altering decision, like something that is colossal and huge, I might look to the Death card instead of the Chariot to see what change needs to be made or how the change will go, things like that. These are just little personal touches. You don't have to do it that way. That's just what I might do for a querent if that were the situation. But again, I've said this numerous times, but anything to the left is the past, anything to the right is the future, anything in line with the card you're looking at is the present. Above is the unconscious influences or the things that the querent doesn't have a whole lot of control over at the moment. Below are the things that the querent is conscious of and the things that they do have a good deal of control or influence over right now. When I'm reading to the future, especially if it's in the center line, generally speaking, for everything other than the central issue, I will only read to here. This is more the overall future card. If there's something like the Magician here and they were asking about a second job or a side business, then I might, peek down here through the diagonal and go and look at this and see if this ties back to that. Remember, if a card is over here and there's no past, then that means the past is not where the client should be focusing right now. If there's no future, that means that it really isn't moving in one direction or the other, and it's really up to what the client does now as to where things will go, which can be a huge blessing. So I try to always stress that. And I have given you all of the anchor points, the anchor cards, significator cards that I use. Again, this is the central issue card. This is the root of the issue card. And I think we've pretty much covered everything. For me, if somebody says that they want a reading, but they have no clue what they want to get a reading on, they just feel like they need a reading for some guidance, I like to break out the Grand Tableau because I feel like it really gives you sort of a good overall snapshot of where things are. And it's great for when people are just like, I need direction as a whole and I'm not quite sure what to ask. So I don't have a separate listing for this on my Spirit Tarot Etsy shop, but if you get the full length one question tarot reading, you can just let me know that what you want is a grand tableau. Like you just want a general reading, you're down for the grand tableau. And that's kind of how I do it, because most people that I read for tend to have a question, or they tend to want a specific style of reading, and that gives them the information that they're looking for. I don't get a lot of requests for this, but I do get some, and I do find that people who are just like, I just want a general reading, but I don't really know what I want to ask, that this usually hits all the points that they're needing to hear right now. So I hope that you have enjoyed that. Again, this is meant for you to be able to just sort of take this and play with it, experiment with it, and make it your own. You can adapt it however you want. This is not my own personal creation. The way I do this has come from years of seeing some other readers doing it, and then me just using it and finding what works and doesn't work for me as an individual reader. So I encourage you to do the same, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Spirit Tarot YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the like button and the bell so that you get notified whenever I put up new videos. Until the next video, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.